Hi there guys, and welcome to another episode of the Cover Zero Show with me, your host Simon Conboy. Today's episode is another game review, and in this episode we're going to be talking about the matchup between the Seattle Seahawks as they visited the Tennessee Titans. Titans really needing to get a statement win and managing to pick that up in this game. As per, I'll be talking mainly about what I saw, not a huge amount of statistics talk in this one. Both teams' game plans, any outstanding performances, and where I think both teams now stand moving forwards. So this was really a fairly bizarre game. Really followed the script of last week's Tennessee game against the Jags, where the first half was just two teams unable to get anything going offensively for a combination of good defence and sort of sloppy offensive play. And then the second half of the game just opened up, and a lot of big plays, especially for the Titans offense, managed to have them pull away with the win. So I'll start with the Titans. I'll go through the halves, to be honest, because it's probably the best way to attack this one, especially considering both teams had the same problems in the first half. Both offensive lines were just getting flat out beat by the defensive lines. Neither quarterback able to really get comfortable in the pocket, which has been the story of Russell Wilson's entire season, particularly off the edge. There was a lot of pressure yesterday. Derek Morgan and Arakpo both started the season very well. They're both good players, and yeah, if it wasn't for Russell Wilson's ability to escape pressure, I do not know what this Seahawks offense would look like right now. I mean, he has been a magician escaping the pocket this year in particular. It's always been a great attribute, but if they had a statue back there, this team would be just utterly doomed. But in the first half, wasn't able to get anything going down the field. The Titans were covering quite aggressively on guys and doing a pretty good job of it. They were hounding, they were getting hits on Russell Wilson. The run game, once again, with Chris Carson, who played well last week but wasn't able to get anything going this week. The Titans once again just clogging up the interior. This year's Titans look pretty good against the run. That remained the case today. And it was really hard to... I think both teams were very conservative going into this first half. They both wanted to try and establish the run. Neither of the defensive fronts would allow that to happen. I mean, Derrick Henry, Carson, it didn't matter. Just about every run was going for a yard either way from the line of scrimmage. I mean, there was absolutely nothing to work with. Neither quarterback looking to take too many chances down the field. And really, the big plays in the half came from penalties. Sherman going absolutely bonkers on what I thought was a pretty harsh penalty, all things considered. I think Eric Decker did a savvy job winning the penalty. It was a throw down the middle of the field to the inside. Sherman had position on the inside. Decker turns back on himself and kind of runs through Sherman's arms a bit, which drew a flag and caused Sherman to lose his head a little. And that ended up in the Titans' first field goal, and I thought that was a pretty bad call. I think that definitely contributed to one of the big moments in this game when Mariota was scrambling to the outside. It's about to take a step out of bounds, and he got lit up by Sherman. It caused a big on-field skirmish, multiple penalties all round. The main surprise to me that no one got kicked out of the game, and yeah, it was a bit of a cheap. Well, it's not. It was a cheap shot, all things considered. I wasn't aware of this until yesterday. Turns out you can be flagged for that, because I'm pretty sure Mariota was still in the field of play, or at least in the field of play enough that you can't expect the defender to be sure. But it turns out they can flag you for excessive force in that situation, which I can understand from a protection perspective, particularly if you're hitting a quarterback like that and the guy's clearly giving himself up out of bounds. So with that being the case, that was a clear flag. But that was the issue for the Seahawks in this first half. The only sort of plays they were giving up were because of defensive penalties. Titans offense looked sloppy. Mariota once again started this game very slowly. Some poor technique on his throws. Struggling to get comfortable in the pocket, partly because of an exceptional pass rush. Michael Bennett started this game really well. And the Titans' offensive line really struggled to establish itself in any way, run or pass. And that went both ways. The Titans' defensive line absolutely dominated. And this first half, it was just punts. Lots and lots of punts. Titans managed to scrape together field goals off of some short fields. There's a big touchdown by Adoree Jackson, called back for a stupid penalty. Utterly unnecessary block in the back. Had no impact on the play. And that was just messy. This Adoree Jackson kid, he's clearly going to break one at some point this year. At least one. He looks incredibly dangerous in the return game. He's been very impressive in that regard. And he's holding his own at corner. I mean, he's given up some plays. Guys are going after him. But he's certainly not embarrassing himself out there. I thought Tennessee linebackers played well in this game as a whole. Their whole front seven was pretty solid. And the first half, really, all you can say for the Seahawks was it was an utter mess up until the Titans, 2-minute drive. Man, they started to sit off. It let Wilson get comfortable. He was still running around a fair bit, but he managed to finally start getting some completions. Doug Baldwin was big for them in this game. He made a great catch in the corner of the end zone. I mean, it was a great play all round. Coverage on Baldwin was pretty good. The throw was exactly where it had to be, and it was a tough catch to get a touchdown right in the front corner of the end zone. So that was very impressive, and it kept the Seahawks in this game heading into half time. And as I say, really tough to analyse that first half. It really was an ugly game of football. Some bad offense, some good defence, and a lot of flags. But the second half, this is where I feel like I can analyse this a bit more properly. Because, I mean, to say the first half was just both teams trying to establish the run, failing miserably, and being very conservative with their passing. And the second half, things just changed, absolutely. The Seahawks managed to get going. Richardson had a nice touchdown. The Titans seemed to loosen up a little bit, sort of daring Wilson to beat them, which seemed an odd move because he regularly did. The pressure was still getting there, but the defence, which was playing up some pretty tight man-type coverages, they seemed to be trying to mix it up with some zone blitz, I think, trying to force Wilson into making a mistake, and that just was not coming. And it allowed the Seahawks to have a lot of success in the second half, including that drive where they took the lead, and at that point I was concerned for the Titans, especially based on how the offense had been playing. But much like last week, you got to give the Titans credit. They came out in the second half. Coaches have done a fantastic job with adjustments in these last two games, and really I think you can put at least two of these, the two big touchdown passes, down to coaching. A big screen pass to Rashard Matthews going about 50 yards, some exceptional blocking. The Titans offensive line really stepped up in the second half and controlled the line of scrimmage. Mariota had very little pressure, looked far more comfortable as a result, and played a really clean, efficient second half of football. The run game didn't quite get going until a bit later in the third, when the Seahawks, I think, wore down a fair bit. But they were exceptional in this second half. This big screen managed to go 50 yards, and it was a bit too easy for me. One broken tackle. Seahawks, I think, became a little aggressive in their over pursuing, and we saw that with the second touchdown. Again, Jonnu Smith, the rookie tight end, lining up as a fullback, escaping into the flat. Absolutely no one within 10 yards or so of him as the Titans sort of rolled everyone to the opposite side. Looks to me like something they saw on film. No one accounted for him. Easy run into the end zone. And that really, from there, it didn't look like the Titans were going to lose this game. And then DeMarco Murray, immediately on the next drive after a 3-and-out, just goes for 75 yards on one of the best blocked plays you'll probably ever see. Just a stretch play out to the left, gets to the corner, brings it back across, and just the downfield blocking. He basically goes 75 yards untouched, with defenders constantly around him throughout the play, but the blocking absolutely superb. So that was you don't see too many 75-yard runs that look like this one, but it was spectacular in its own way, particularly if you appreciate good blocking. And these kind of plays, incredibly uncharacteristic of the Seahawks defence. To give up these big plays, none of them down the field, which is very difficult on this team. getting plays down the field, but they're normally fantastic in pursuit, and they're normally very, very disciplined. You don't see these kind of breakdowns too often, and really, the screen and the 2 touchdown passes are both defensive breakdowns, and the run, that's just a bit of a bizarre one, but those plays kind of put away the game. Titans managed to sort of grind out some other drives. I say the offensive line kind of took control. Derrick Henry managed to get going a little. Team started to convert some first downs. Weren't really looking consistent through the air. Seahawks secondary doing very much what they do, but getting just enough done. I think they did a great job sprinkling in Marcus Mariota runs this week, which isn't something. It's something they've been fairly reluctant to do a lot of the time, but each time they did, it seemed to be a good. It was successful. He managed to get the edge and pick up big yardage for first downs, enabling this team to extend drives, because really the standard sort of plays weren't quite working for them, but it was a solid performance in the second half by Tennessee. The big plays make it look like they dominated, I think, more than they did, but it was much cleaner, much more efficient. They'll be happy with how well they protected their quarterback there. For the Seahawks, the usual plan working for them, but the linebackers just making bad decisions and getting caught out on some of these plays. How DeMarco Murray runs 75 yards basically untouched, I'm not entirely sure, because he is not looking particularly explosive or fast at this point in time. And as much credit as I'll give the Titans blocking, it feels to me like someone's got to make a play on that one. And that play really did feel like the dagger. First half, as mentioned, the defensive line was great. Linebackers were playing well. Bobby Wagner all over the field. In the second half, it was really difficult to see any Seahawks player was particularly making any plays. It was as poor a showing as they've really had in one half of football, especially with the breakdowns. There wasn't much playmaking. Didn't really get their hands on too many balls. The Titans were very conservative with their passing game, but it just wasn't very impactful. Sheldon Richardson was very, very quiet in this game, as was Cliff Averill. Those two pretty much nullified in the second half. Even Bennett struggled then, as all credit goes to that Tennessee offensive line. On the other side of things, got to question what Tennessee were doing defensively, having been so effective in the first half in shutting this team down. They just started playing soft. They weren't really attempting to get after Wilson so much. I think they thought, it looked in the first half like their theory was that if the Seahawks were going to win offensively, it was going to be through the run game. Second half, of course, the Seahawks end up basically abandoning that, and the Titans tried to play coverage on them, and it just was not working. As a result, the pressure on Wilson was lessened as they were dropping more guys back into coverage. Wilson was able to get into a rhythm, find guys, particularly Doug Baldwin, who was all over the field making plays until a groin injury took him out. Luke Wilson, the backup tight end, he was making some plays. I don't know what's going on with Jimmy Graham right now. Just something doesn't look right. The chemistry between him and Wilson doesn't seem to be there, and I'm not sure he's running particularly well. And frankly, we never need to see Jimmy Graham attempt to block another NFL player again. Frankly, it's just embarrassing. He's just a big receiver. He should be treated that way, because it's certainly not a strength of his. This offensive line held up reasonably in that second half. Wilson was still running around, but a lot of it was just to sort of create some extra time. He was spending a lot of time in the pocket in this game. Well, not in the pocket, but behind the line of scrimmage without guys getting to him. And it just was tearing these guys up. I don't know why they started defending so soft. In the first half, they were defending guys tight, because they were run blitzing a bit more and trying to focus on taking away those inside gaps. They were doing a much better job then. When they were playing zones, there were big holes, and Wilson was just able to exploit them. And this receiving group is pretty good. If you give them time, this Seahawks pass offense can get going. And Wilson managed to make it happen. Just in the end, they kind of just ran out of time, because this Titans team looked a bit gassed towards the end on the defensive side. Positive signs for the Seahawks, though, offensively, in that it's the first time they've started to really look like an actual NFL offense in that second half. Feel they should have maybe sprinkled in a bit more of CJ Procise, because he did look pretty explosive when he got the ball coming out of the backfield. And particularly with the kind of pressure that teams are getting on Russell Wilson at the moment, I feel they need to try and use the running back as an option more in the passing game. Everything does feel like they're trying to do a bit too much down the field and relying on Wilson to make plays with his feet. And I'm not sure, with the way this offensive line's playing and this run game isn't going, that it's going to be an efficient way for this team to go in the long term. So they've got a lot of work to do. And in terms of their game plan, I mean, I'm not sure what it was heading in. It just looked like they wanted Chris Carson to get a lot of the ball and to try and build off that. But it was, as you probably expect, I think that's what teams are going to prepare for when they play the Seahawks right now. They're not going to pay much respect to this passing game. And when you look at the first half, there's no reason to. At the minute, getting pressure on Wilson works. If you can do that and you can contain him, stop him getting some outside runs, and he's not taking off as much as he used to, then you're going to have success against this team. They look very easy to stop right now, and that's got to be a big concern for Pete Carroll and his guys. So a deserved win for the Titans. They really played the more complete game, and they were able to get the run game going in the second half where the Seahawks absolutely weren't. And they looked in control, whilst the Seahawks managed to sort of get it looking close. Really, after the DeMarco Murray touchdown run, this game wasn't in any doubt. A little disappointed that the Titans let the Seahawks get back into it. I feel they were almost the victims of their own demise yesterday, but in the end it was a fairly comfortable victory. And they sort of turned the heat up on the Seahawks toward the end of the game when the Seahawks were getting closer, and it reverted back to form. So a very good win for them. They needed to have this one. I'd have been very concerned for the Titans and their legitimacy had they lost this game, and real concerns for the Seahawks moving forward. This offense is just severely flawed, and it's just hard to see them winning too many games at this point in time, particularly when you've got to be thinking, this team's got to be thinking like, Super Bowl run and winning multiple playoff games in a row. With the level of performance they're offering on that side of the ball at the minute is just, it's utterly implausible, as good as this defense is, because we're seeing them just getting gassed by the end of games. And Titans have a big game next week. The Texans looked much better over the weekend, and they've got a defense that I think can cause this Titans team some trouble. I can't see the Titans' game plan of primarily trying to run with the exotic smash mouth being the best. JJ Watt looks like he's starting to round that into some form. It's going to be a really fun matchup from that perspective. I feel like this can be the statement of intent for the Titans within the division. Having beat the Jags, they can really take control of things if they get that victory. And I think they're a better all-round team than the Texans at this point in time. So that's going to be a huge, huge game for them. In terms of the Seahawks, do they have the Cardinals next week? I'm not sure. Let me just check that one. I mean, either way, every game is going to feel pretty big for them at the minute. They do have the advantage of being in the NFC West, where without the Seahawks playing well, there is no clear sort of consensus front runner. I'm still not buying into the Rams quite yet. So next week, they've got the Colts. Well, that's an opportunity for them to get on track, particularly with the Colts' lack of a pass rush. So, and then the Rams the following week. The way the Colts have looked, this would be a good opportunity for this Seahawks team to try and build some confidence, because I think that's got to be a major issue on this offensive line at the minute. And if they can beat the Rams the following week, then once again they become the front runners within that division, you would have to suspect. But some major concerns there, and I think they've just got to hope there's no kind of divide that forms in the locker room. I think that could be the biggest issue facing the Seahawks outside of the offensive struggles. So there you have it. let me know, what do you guys think? This was a really strange game, especially that first half. And yeah, one of the tougher ones to analyse. But yeah, it was certainly entertaining in the second half. I can't deny that much. What did you guys think? Are there any outstanding performers from your end? For me, Doug Baldwin was probably looked like the best player on the field over the course of this game, other than maybe Russell Wilson. God knows where that team would be without those two. And yeah, give us a shout. We've got the Cover Zero Facebook page, comment section below. You can find me on Twitter at Simon Conboy. Always fun to talk ball. As ever, if you enjoyed this episode, check out some more. We've got plenty of other reviews up, previews for games coming up next week. And on Wednesday, we'll be doing the live stream. Myself, likely Arnie and Dan again. Should be a live stream. If not, it'll just be pre-recorded, but more likely than not a live stream. They're really enjoyable. We talk about all the previous week's games and all the upcoming games. They're fun to do. I assume they're as much fun to watch as they are to do, so check those out. And if you could like, share, subscribe, check out the Patreon. It'll all be greatly appreciated. Thank you so much for watching. As ever, it's been an absolute pleasure. Have a great day and go Bucks.